other teaching and fellowship opportunities in the church, but not necessarily public worship. I mean, they're pretty much there week in and week out for the public assembly of the whole church. But anything else, they're not really involving themselves in that. I mean, what would you say in that case?
So, like including Sunday school, like we talked about last time.
Sunday school, or
or whatever. Yeah, no, that's
see the Sunday school episode.
Exactly. So I would never call that sin. Just like I said about Sunday school, I mean, the Bible never tells you to be there Wednesday night, never tells you to be there Sunday school, never tells you to be there on a special Sunday evening service, whatever your church has. But I think that limiting to just that kind of short worship service time, being the family that comes in late and leaves right away, it's unwise. And it doesn't utilize all the tools that God has given us for the discipleship of our kids. And I think it stands at least against the biblical precedent, because I think the Bible, even in Acts, it acknowledges the church being together on a regular basis that I think involved more than just having a quick time together for an hour and then just going back to your own family routine.
Right, you run out the back door so you can get to the restaurant first.
Yeah, of course. You got to get there, especially if they're going to run out of bacon, you know?
That's right. All get to heaven faster together. Yeah, I mean, we talked about that on the Sunday school episode. I think it's just one of those, why aren't you taking advantage of these? And it's an opportunity to minister to others, to be fed, and to surround your kids and your youth with God's people. And that's really, really valuable. So what do kids and youth stand to gain by being involved in the local church along with their parents?
They stand to gain a lot, a great deal. I think one thing that they stand to gain is a real thing that's significant is Christian friends. Friends that walk with Jesus, that sharpen one another as the iron sharpens the iron. And I've seen cases where even in children's ministry, that children have grown up in Christ together and have pointed one another to Jesus, even in a class that's been spiritually beneficial. And that's something that establishes you for life. Hey, maybe even sets up a marriage within the church one day. But the Bible...
Arrange them.
Exactly, yeah. The Bible talks so much about these one another's, that talking about serving one another, loving one another. One another is this term that comes over and over and over again in the New Testament. And the church is where the one another's become lived out, where we act out those one another's. We're the place where it's meant to happen, where our love and our embrace towards one another is meant to be manifested. In fact, it's actually our greater family that's bigger, our ultimate family that's going to last forever. It's our future, that when we get involved in the local church alongside parents as a whole family, we see our present family, but we also see and connect to the future family that we're going to be closer to. I mean, I think there's biblical evidence that might say that in the new heavens and new earth, you might be every bit as close to the Christian that was in the pew five ahead of you that you barely interacted with. Then you'll be every bit as close to that person as you will your wife or your father or your child in the new heavens and new earth.
I think you're right that there's so much there, and just the friendships and just the wider influence of godly people and the love that they can show for your children and for your family. I mean, I know we have benefited from that as a family, and my kids have seen that when we lived away from extended family. And there was a couple in the church that they were close to us, and the man, his health was not good, but he prayed. He couldn't do a lot physically, but he told me, I pray for you every day, and I believed him. And his wife, there was times she'd have my daughter come over and play, with princess dresses and things that her granddaughters had played with, and just those kinds of things. It's really rich in seeing other godly people around them. And you were talking about the friendship. I mean, I've got a friend who he is in ministry now, and he and I went to church, in Sunday school, like when we were in kindergarten, and we didn't always go to the same local church, but we did for a number of years, and that was a friendship that was forged. And there was also school involved and things like that. But anyway, I mean, just a testimony to that. But I think it's also, in America, we don't need any help in becoming more self-focused. And in the culture that we live in, it's just so emphasized. And then the widespread use of social media and cell phones and that kind of thing. And, with the young people that you're working with, I'm sure a lot of use of the cell phone. And so it just absorbs them in their own little world. Even though they're connecting with other people digitally, they're very focused into what's happening in that screen. And I think that it helps them see that they're caught up in something bigger than them and their narrow vision of life. Like, they're part of this organism that spans the ages of God's people. And I think that can be helpful to just broaden their horizon in a real sense.
Yeah.
So, Tony, how should parents look to the local church and lean on it for help in raising their kids, as Ephesians 6:4 says, in the discipline and the instruction of the Lord?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of things that can take place with this. I think parents should take the resources offered and that equip parents for the discipleship of their kids seriously. So, for example, perhaps your church offers parenting seminars or, discipleship seminars, family worship classes, something like that. Embrace that. Don't just see that as something that's for the parents that are worse off, the parents that aren't in the situation of life that I'm in, but see that as relevant to you, as a gift to you to partner with a local church. But also, I think, get the wisdom of the elders of the church, the elders as in the elders and the pastors of the local church, in the discipleship of kids. I think often the spiritual leaders of the church have so much to say, and instead of looking on Google for input in biblical parenting on how we shepherd our kids, utilize the resource that are your pastors in shepherding and discipling your kids, as they know the ultimate true authority that is the Word of God. But I think also another way that parents look to the local church, and this is they look to the local church to see the other side of our kids in an encouraging and sometimes in rebuking ways. So, I've known of recently I was talking to a parent within our church, and I was really encouraged by their daughter. And they were saying that I was, very encouraged. Really, seeing a lot of growth and a lot of maturity in their daughter, and they felt that they were surprised by that because they wished that they'd seen that at home more often. And I think it was an encouragement to them to see that there's more than just what they see. But then, there might be a situation where your child is a bully towards other children in Sunday school. Your child is not receptive to the lesson. And when you're not present, and you can kind of see where you need to shepherd your child in ways that you really wouldn't have known about.
That's really good. I like that because there's so much. The parents just miss things, and there can be blind spots, and in receiving that encouragement. Yeah, I think that the things that you said covered that well. You just got the wisdom of other believers in those relationships. God wanted you to interact with real people who know you and not just Google. Google can give you some good things, but you have real people who know you and love you. So what can the local church provide families in raising their kids in the Lord's ways that family can't really get on their own? Is there anything that you beyond what you're just talking about that you would add to that?
I think the ordinary means of grace. It's just the reality is that a family in no biblical sense can offer the Lord's Supper, baptism. They can't offer the word preached. They can't offer congregational music unless, they're like the Duggars, maybe. But I think also a benefit is it helps them by it offers the ability for your child and for your youth to see that faith is something that's beyond what's just in our house. And I think it likewise provides different perspective and different cultural and background blinders that are present in the body. The reality is that we're all influenced by our particular background perspective, sometimes in a way that leads to unfaithfulness, sometimes in ways that lead to faithfulness. And I think seeing another person's blinder and perspectives is what helps you see what's true and what you're missing sometimes.
Yeah, you should not ideally be practicing, the ordinances and the communary means of grace at your house. I could think maybe on the frontier missions or something like that, where there's not an established church. But church discipline. I mean, there's home discipline for sure, but it's a different thing than church discipline. So are there any resources that you think address this dynamic well for those who might be struggling with this or thinking through it? I mean, you mentioned you had your friend that read that was a 3 or 4 Views book, and he went one direction with that. But are there? I mean, would you recommend that resource or anything else? Or
I would, but on top of that, I would recommend which that resource is for Views of Family Ministry. Let me hold on. That to Views on Family Ministry, we can edit this. Hold on, because I was going to refer to a couple other things, but since you asked. All right, and that book actually is Perspectives on Family Ministry, and it's written by a variety of authors from different perspectives. It's made by Zondervan. But I think some other really good resources are, one, as actually a kid's book that really connects this really well, is the book by Sojourn, that Sojourn Community Church in Louisville, Kentucky has produced, called What is Church? I think that's just a really sweet that little book, small little book with great illustrations and pictures that kind of explains what the church is in a way that and how it even connects to the family. But also Timothy Paul Jones, who's a professor of mine at seminary. I don't know if you took any classes with him or not. But
I did not.
He wrote a book called Practical Family Ministry, and I think it really embraces how that church works with the family rather than against, and how the church offers things in some ways that the family can't offer.
I've seen the Sojourn book you were talking about. I have not read it, and Timothy Paul Jones, great author. He's a very engaging writer. I think he can bring some big concepts and put them in a memorable way. And I've heard him speak a number of times, and so he's written pretty widely about family ministry. Yeah, I don't know that I would really add to the list. I'm sure there's some things out there or specific elements of a book or something like that, but they're not there. I need to do a better job at cataloging my reading notes. And like we both said at the beginning, or towards the beginning, more people are kind of prone to the drop-off thing, but there are also people who overdo it on the family, and they think, and so it can be like almost house church. I know of a case like that where the family sort of did home church, which meant just nuclear family church, from what I understand, and then now at least one of the adult children, it's very, very much a struggle for her to go to, like, I guess what we'd call a normal church, to a local assembly of people that she's not related to. And just, I'm not sure all of that's the issue there. But I think that was a family with good intentions. And I know of other families that have done similar things. And ultimately, that's just not what God intended. I mean, you look at the New Testament letters, there's a group of people who are there that they're not all part of the same. They don't all share the same last name. Yeah. And so, as much as family ministry is important, family discipleship in the home, it's not the only thing. And so the local church has a vital role to play. And it's understanding the importance of that. And over the past century or so, we kind of lost out on the importance of the church, and they're just being recovered. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. I think that we've headed in a positive direction in this aspect. But, I mean, we definitely need to be careful that we never go to too far extremes.
And that's the difficulty with our fallen human nature. We tend to swing like a wild pendulum back and forth. And so hopefully the Lord will give us wisdom and grace to not do that in our own families and our own church. Amen. So, well, thanks for talking about this stuff with me, Tony, today. It was beneficial, and I hope it will be beneficial to our listeners.
God bless. Have a good week, brother.
You too.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Theological Family Ministry Podcast. If you have enjoyed this episode, please give us a review on iTunes and share the podcast with your friends on social media. All new episodes are available to listen to on Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube, Spreaker, and iTunes. We hope you have a great week, and join us again every first and third Thursday.